Hi investigators, Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy here with this week's update, the first week of June 2020, on what's happening in the private investigation industry throughout Australia. Well, the big news in Australian private investigation industry this week is Tasmania, in their licensing authority in that state, which is basically the Office of Fair Trading or Consumer Affairs, they have dropped the requirement for Tasmanian private investigators to have a 1-year provisional licence. As of the 11th of May, that has now gone. So when you become a private investigator in Tasmania now, you are fully licensed immediately. Therefore, you must have your qualification. There's no 1-year waiting period anymore. It's very confusing on their website. They've just put out a brand new website, and references to inquiry agents or private investigators is almost non-existent. All aspiring investigators down there seeking a licence have got to ring up Consumer Affairs, who are very patient because they're getting a lot of calls about this, because in Tasmania there's quite a demand at the moment for licensed private investigators, and they are trying to help them get their licence applications in because they just can't do it through the website. So Tasmania now have dropped the provisional licensing requirement. What does that mean? That means New South Wales, Cappy Police Licensing, the Robinson Crusoe Licensing Regulation Authority in Australia, because now they are the only ones that have a provisional requirement for new licensed private investigators. For 8 years, Cappy New South Wales licensing has been out of touch with reality and client requirements that every licensed private investigator that's going to work for them must be 1, qualified, must be 2, trained, and must be 3, licensed. So you could still now today become a licensed private investigator for $128, and for 2 years you can be a licensed private investigator without training, without qualifications, and without a license, which is just the P-plate license. So Cappy New South Wales, sadly out of touch and all on their own now. Tasmania's got in step with the reality of Western Australia, South Australia, Victoria and Queensland, Northern Territory as well. So Tasmania's fallen into line with those. The only one outside of that now is basically Cappy New South Wales. So that's big news, and the pressure's on Cappy New South Wales to drop their 2-year provisional license requirement. It's not required anymore. Clients won't employ anyone who's untrained, who's unqualified. They will not do it. And the investigation agencies aren't allowed to employ anyone like that. But you can still have backyard cowboy ones. So it's dangerous. It's time for New South Wales to get real. Okay, I've been asked to say, for those out there that are emerging investigators, some of the things that the work that you will do as a licensed private investigator that's not regularly really well known is something that some of the investigations that you don't know that you do, that you could end up doing if you work with certain investigation agencies. Now, there are two that are very, how could I put it, quite unheard of, but they're quite common. The first one, and this is moving with the times, moving with the trends and moving with the technology, is investigation agencies in Australia are engaged by Australian television productions to do background checks on people who are going to be contestants on reality TV. So whether that's Married at First Sight, I think it's called, or MAFS they call it, The Wife Takes a Farmer, or one of those renovation things, they check the backgrounds of the people. Now, afterwards, they can be as notorious as they like and strip off or do whatever they want to do. But before the program, they're looking for nice church-going, mosque-going, decent people who are not going to have a big surprise of some kind of evil background that the sponsors won't like, and they will drop the program. So licensed investigators working for Australian investigation agencies actually do those background checks, and it's not very well known that they do, but they are engaged to do that. Which investigations do that? Well, you have to be a graduate student from the Australian Security Academy for me to tell you that one. But it's done weekly, on a weekly basis throughout Australia. Now, the second one, and this one's really important in the economic times that we live in, it involves surveillance investigators. Now, as you know, if a hairdresser has a very successful business and she sells that to another hairdresser who buys it because the first hairdresser is just over it, wants to have a bit of a rest. They sign a non-competitive agreement where the person buying the hairdressing salon asks the person selling the hairdressing salon not to open up another hairdressing salon within 3 suburbs of this one that she's paying for. That way, she's agreed not to do that and steal all the customers back and take all the money from the sale of the business as well. So that's what a non-competitive agreement on a really basic level is. Now, when you get into the world of big finance and big products and big corporate dollars, it multiplies in its effect. So how does that happen? What's it all about? Well, the sales executives who earn, quite a substantial amount of money, they are, when they leave a workplace, they sign a non-competitive agreement, and they usually, most often, paid a sweetener not to take that sales list and sell it to competitors, because the sales could run into hundreds of millions of dollars if it's big equipment, earth-moving equipment, mining equipment, that sort of thing. They don't want this person that used to work for us going out and giving all our customers to them and selling their products to our customers, because those customers could possibly buy those products. So keep that in mind. It's called a non-competitive agreement, and that's when they engage surveillance investigators to follow that executive that used to work in that workplace who may have taken that sales list with them and see where they go. And then they can match up where they go to any sales losses that they have. And if that becomes the case and it's consistent over time, then they've got a really strong case to take their agreement, which both signed to be non-competitive, and take it to court and get some kind of retribution for that. So there's 2 types of investigations you may not have heard of: background checks for reality TV contestants and non-competitive agreement for surveillance. Now, it is quite a regular occurrence, and it happens in the big corporate world. So this isn't your insurance company type stuff. This is your corporate investigation stuff for non-competitive agreements. This week also, the Australian Private Investigation Association, the AIPI, they have released their newsletter. So their newsletter will be out this week, and there's articles by Nick in South Australia and myself about the Hayne inquiry and the effects that that's going to have on investigations and how they go about their business. So AIPI is coming out this week, so keep an eye out for that. It's happening. Don't miss it. It's a very informative book. As I said last week, the AISP in Victoria, they've got a half price offer on their membership of their association for investigators. So don't miss out on that. It's a half price membership offer that's on now. It's not going to last forever. So the AISP are actively out there seeking members, investigators and security people. You can see Lisa Cast there, you can see Penelope there. Lots of investigators, members of the AISP in Victoria. I'm a member of the AISP in Victoria, so take them up on that special half price offer. Well, one of the letters I got this week asked me about, one of the people said, look, I've been binge watching all the detective programs, MacIver and Columbo and all that sort of thing. I've run out of programs to watch on TV. What should I be watching to get a really good view of that sort of thing? Now, investigators, they love their TV cop shows, and they like their mystery thrillers and stuff like that. But there is one that I highly recommend, and I'm going to recommend another one next week. It's an Australian movie next week, but this one's one in Denmark. I'll just give you a quick look at it. What it is, it's a missing persons case, and the person in the who's got to be found in this missing persons movie, his name's Olav. It's fictional. He's Denmark's gold medal winning ice skater. He's a national hero. He's got older. He's lost all his sort of charisma, and he's so desperate that he's selling penis enlargement pumps and breast enlargement cream and ripping people off. So this gets a bit lost in translation, but only the Danes could make this sort of movie in Denmark. So he's been doing that, and suddenly as a result, they believe of his activities, he's gone missing. So his family need a private investigator to hire to go and find him. They're not really interested in finding him all that much because they want the insurance, I think. But let's have a look at the person they get to help them.
Privatdetektiv Robert Boger. Möt meg en hårstrøke.
Folk bare ler av deg, skjønner du ikke? Du har Downs syndrom, Robert. Blir ikke noen detektiv og tar på deg hatt og frakk.
Er det du som er privatdetektiven? Vet du hva, da foreslår jeg at vi drar hjem til huset vårt med en gang, sånn at du får satt deg inn i saken.
Får jeg oppdraget?
Ja, naturligvis.
It's a great movie, Detective Downs. Now, Detective Downs, he lives at the Ladybug home for people with Down syndrome, and he has Down syndrome himself, and he's never had a case. And when people find out that he's got Down syndrome, they don't engage him as an investigator from his advertisements. So he's really determined to get a case. If you know a special person who has Down syndrome or the parents of a special person with Down syndrome, this is a really great uplifting movie. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll really enjoy how he puts it together. Now, the really good thing about this for private investigators is he has his own method.
Han er spesialist i forsvinningssaker, og han har sin egen metode.
Ja vel, hva går den ut på?
Jeg bruker følelsene.
Mannen min som har forsvunnet. Vi frykter at det kan ha skjedd noe helt forferdelig.
Da er vi i gang. Jeg skal finne Olav ved å leve livet hans videre. Skål da, jenta mi. Hvis vi skal finne Olav, må vi hjelpe hverandre.
Hvis vi ville finne Olav, så hadde vi jo skaffet oss en ordentlig detektiv.
And that method is used by surveillance investigators to follow subjects. That same method is used by factual investigators to find missing people. So if you've got a spare hour and a half, Google it. You'll really enjoy it. If you're bad weather outside, the middle of winter, it beats watching the footy and all those boys jumping around and cuddling and kissing each other. In Detective Downs made in Denmark, you'll see a whole lot more than that. But it is a really good private investigator film with a lot of truth in it and a lot of very well acted and a great movie to watch if you need some cheering up during the winter. So next week, we'll be watching another movie made in Australia that sat a few government investigation agencies on the backside when it came out because of the stir it caused. We'll also be looking next week. I'm starting my information for licensing authorities as a result of this week's move by Tasmania to stop the P provisional license. We're going to assist those licensing authorities to understand a little bit more about the investigation industry. Don't forget, if you're looking for investigation work, I have Facebook pages dedicated to investigation, corporate government and private investigation vacancies. Get in touch with me. Just Google the Australian Security Academy. There's exciting news about the Australian Security Academy's website coming out next week. So that's something to look forward to. And I hope you've had a great week in investigations. People are starting to get quite busy out there. They're contacting me asking for investigators in certain parts of Australia. Keep up with watching those websites for the vacancies. I'll see you next week. I'm Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy.